Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown in beautiful and cool and sunny Shenzhen, China, just south of the Tropic of Cancer. Today, I've done a lot of these over the years, and I would have to say that, at least as far as you're concerned, my fans and followers out there in China Rising Radio Sinoland, that this is one of the most important that I've ever done, because a lot of it has to do with you and your future. So I really hope that you'll take the time to think about it and not only think about your current existence, but think about the future too. The name of this podcast is October 18th, 2017 is World CD Day, when Baba Beijing declared war on Western capitalism. Let me take a sip of my pu'er tea here. Never drink pu'er tea before 3 in the afternoon. After 3 in the afternoon, otherwise you'll never go to sleep. All right, there's a picture of Xi Jinping sitting on a stage, and the byline says, "Above, Xi Jinping, President of China, taking a rare rest. Very few world leaders work as hard, day in and day out, as he does. It has been a trademark of his statecraft since being sent to the countryside for re-education during the Cultural Revolution. He loves to remind his fellow CPC members, Communist Party of China members, and all the citizens to live by Mao Zedong's simple and powerful mantra, serve the people. Xi lives it, breathes it, and sets the highest standard for everyone else to follow. He is what we call genuine." All right, here is the podcast. On October 18th, 2017, Chinese President Xi Jinping stood before about 3,000 delegates and guests in Beijing's Great Hall of the People. They came from all over the country as elected representatives of the country's National People's Congress, abbreviated the NPC. President Xi belied his 64 years of age by showing stamina and vigor during his 40,000-word, 3.5-hour speech. As usual, there are tons of hyperlinks if you'd like to find the source article, and you can follow along and double your pleasure. This NPC keynote speech is traditionally given by the country's current leader to officially open the once every 5-year, known as the Big Party Congress, this being the 19th one. In the interim, the NPC, the State Council, and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, abbreviated CPPCC, meet every 6 months for discussion, writing laws, and passing legislation. This tradition goes back to Mao Zedong since China's liberation in 1949 and continues to this day. The leader's keynote speech is meant to set the tone for the Congress and to map out their vision for the next 5 years, whereupon there will be another party Congress at that time. But Xi Jinping's speech was very different than the preceding ones, and therefore something special because he was also talking to you. In the decades to come, Xi's speech will go down not only in Chinese annals, but in human history as well, as one of the most important ever written. No, he is not a charismatic orator, far from being a podium rock star like Robert G. Ingersoll was in his days of popular fame and mainstream infamy. It is not how XJP, as he is also called for Xi Jinping, it is not how XJP said it, or that it took him so long to cover all the points he wanted to make. It was his towering vision for his country and his people, not just for the next 5 years, but for all of humanity for the next 30 years. Washington, London, Paris, Tel Aviv had better get ready to rumble. Xi's speech was entitled, "Securing a Decisive Victory in Building a Moderately Prosperous Society in All Respects and Strive for the Great Success of Socialism with Chinese Characteristics for the New Era." After reading XJP's 65-page speech, I can truthfully paraphrase the title as Securing a Decisive Socialist Victory to Replace Western Global Capitalism. I'm not going to write a detailed analysis of his 65-page speech here. Instead, here is a summary of its essentials. Baba Beijing, China's leadership really is eliminating extreme poverty and will realize this goal by 2020. Yes, China has the world's largest and fastest growing middle class in the world, but that's not good enough. Baba Beijing is going to start asking the most affluent citizens to pay back to society, as equality and fairness are two of the 12 core socialist values. Yes, China already has thriving technology, innovation, research and development, universal health care, retirement security, world-class infrastructure, effective diplomacy, cooperative international socio-economic relationships, a powerful military, an increasingly prosperous citizenry, a thriving participatory democracy, rule of law, green energy, improving ecosystems, rich education, arts, literature, and media, and a merciless program to wipe out government and corporate corruption. This vision comes with the sharing, caring, harmonious creed of stability and progress for all. It boils down to Chairman Mao's simple yet powerful, serve the people. But this is just the start of our long roads, difficult struggles to attain even loftier goals. This journey started at its nadir in 1840 with the nation's subjugation and humiliation after the Opium Wars. Now Baba Beijing is spelling out specific and targeted goals for 2021 and 2049. 2021 reaches the halfway point. By 2049, China will be a fully developed, highly prosperous, and advanced Marxist, Leninist, Maoist socialist society. Then, under the guidance and leadership of the Communist Party of China, abbreviated CPC, the country and its proud, hard-working people will be ready to develop strategies and plans to transition from socialism with Chinese characteristics to the ultimate Chinese dream. This new era Chinese dream will include Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan in a united People's Republic. The entire Chinese nation will be very prosperous, democratic, law-abiding, cultural, harmonious, technologically advanced, and militarily unassailable. The people's wealth and productivity will be widely and fairly shared among citizens of all walks of life. This new era Chinese dream means that the party and people will create a successful communist society based on Marxism, Leninism, Mao Zedong thought, and now Xi Jinping thought. That's the end of the summary of his speech. To clarify, XJP said that today is just the beginning to achieve a grand and great dream, and it is going to take a lot of work, commitment, and yes, even sacrifice. Specific goals and objectives were set out to be met by 2021, the centennial anniversary of the founding of the CPC, and 2049, which is the 100-year celebration of the creation of the People's Republic of China. An Indian friend of mine who lives in China joked, and he is absolutely correct, China is a socialist country and it will be done. Why? Because hands down, China is the best governed, most efficiently managed democracy in the world, and within the last 5 years, one of the least corrupt. Even more earth-shaking, if you are non-Chinese, XJP implicitly invited you to join China's vision for the 21st century. She is offering to share with you and prosper as equals in the world's wealth, peacefully and willingly, not by invasion, war, occupation, genocide, extraction, and exploitation. In other words, the opposite of the Imperial West. Are you ready? Here's what Xi's speech explains to you. Capitalism is dead. Long live socialism, communism, and Marxism, Leninism, Mao Zedong thought. Xi used these terms collectively a couple of hundred times. Add the comments on revolutionary roots, democratic centralism, people's democratic dictatorship, and people's ownership of the means of production, and his speech stands as a proud embrace of China's socialism, communism, and a total rejection of the West's 500-year capitalist empire. Previous leaders, Deng Xiaoping, Jiang Zemin, and Hu Jintao, always gave the West the impression that China was ready to join its Orwellian, quote, rule-based international order, end of quote, whatever that is. Early on, even Mao reached out to the West to seek cooperation, but was shunned. So he said, "Go to hell," and built New China without them, in spite of them, and for the people. Mao Zedong is the reason why I can sit here today and write this article. Starting with Deng, Westerners heard what they wanted to hear and ignored the avalanche of other speeches that post-Mao leaders gave. These speeches clearly spelled out their long-term vision for an eventual rich communist society by transitioning through a period of socialist socioeconomic country building. This includes using some capitalist market-based tools to create the needed wealth for the citizens to have the life and lifestyle they seek. Why? China never had the West's 5 centuries of extractive, exploitive, colonialist capitalism to bring all of the developing world's trillions of dollars in resources and riches back home. While cherry-picking Baba Beijing's pronouncements to suit their myopic ideology, 99% of Westerners have also never read China's constitution. It is a flame-throwing denunciation of Western capitalism and a defiant declaration for Marxism, Leninism, Maoism. This includes so-called, quote, China experts, end of quote, such as David Shambaugh, Orville Schell, Bruce J. Dixon, Willie Lamb, Gordon Chang, and the editors at the New York Times, Washington Post, The Economist, and the Financial Times, among others. This list would not be complete without hacks like Frank Dicotter, Li Jusui, Jun Chang, and John Halliday churning out their mendacious scar literature, it's called. They will go unnamed, but I can add to the first list several friends of mine who are authors and journalists. Together they all have in their, quote, the Chinese communist is evil, end of quote, marching orders. And those marching orders are, Mao Zedong was a genocidal mass murderer who nearly destroyed his people and his country. His era was cruel, blood-soaked, and a colossal failure. China cannot succeed. China is unstable. The CPC is totalitarian, oppressive, lawless, grotesque, depraved, fiendish, hopelessly corrupt, and detested by the masses. The poor, hapless citizens are frightened, brainwashed myrmidons who have zero freedoms. China is a tinderbox of seething unrest, just waiting for a spark of outrage, a glimmer of hope from us, the civilized Western world. China's economy and society are going to implode any day now. We know what is best for the Chinese. It cannot survive without Western capitalism and so-called so-called democracy. All right, for 70 years, these ideologues have made a good living, gotten high-paying jobs in prestigious universities, think tanks, foundations, newspapers, and book publishers, as well as gaining a lot of mainstream celebrity in the process, while relentlessly pushing their agenda. The problem is they are all dead wrong. They always have been and always will be, because ideological hatred blinds people to the truth. For the first time in a post-Mao Party Congress speech, President Xi said exactly this: of course indirectly and obliquely. Mao never hesitated to rain thunderbolts of truth on the imperial West, but times have changed. Subtleness and gentle persuasion are the order of the day. Xi never once played nice about hoping to join the global capitalist order, which is revealing. Not only that, but he laid out a socialist communist plan for the entire world and invited planet Earth's 6 billion non-citizens to join the Chinese dream of harmonious sharing, win-win development, and prosperity for all. Thus, Xi's speech comes full circle with Comrade Mao. Mao's pronouncements and results on the ground in the developing world were to develop and build a better world together, and when necessary, take down your country's capitalist elites with the revolutionary barrel of a gun. Xi is also offering to turn the tables on global capitalism using Mao's cooperation model, but without the AK-47s. How? Today's China has something the Mao era sorely lacked: monetary wealth and lots of it. So what bodes for the future? The imperialist, colonialist, capitalist West, for the imperialist, colonialist, capitalist West, XJP's stunning vision and the 19th Party's runaway success are an open declaration of war against it. Xi is, of course, inviting the West to join them, but empire never joins anything. Capitalist empire dictates, dominates, destroys, extracts, and exploits. Western elites have saurian brains and rampage across the planet accordingly. President Xi and the CPC obviously know that the West is not going to jump on board the Chinese dream unless there is a massive, continuous, and pan-global popular demonstrations by the masses demanding radical systemic change. These protests would need to be lightning fast and transnational. That way the deep state would be forced to at least give the impression of modifying its extractive, exploitive capitalism by making some cosmetic changes to stay in control of the West's wealth and those countries it can still rape and plunder. This was the exact same game plan after World War II. The elites gave the masses just enough breadcrumbs to keep open revolt from happening following the Great Depression, when there was a huge surge in popularity for socialism and communism in the West. The joke that you can thank a communist for the 40-hour work week, overtime pay, paid vacation, Social Security retirement, government health care, and other post-war benefits is true. Our owners gave up all that to negate the rising tide of anti-capitalism sweeping the West. Of course, being lizard-brained greedheads, they want it all, so starting in the 1970s, they began to methodically claw it all back. Is a redux of this scenario possible? It's debatable, but it did happen last century, and for a brief generation, the average Jane and Joe did have a better standard of living by being allowed to share more of the West's productivity and wealth. Ironically, if it happens this century, Westerners can again thank communists. That leaves the classic imperial ploy for survival: all-out war. Given what both the West and the anti-West have as tools of the military trade, this is a truly frightening prospect. So in a sense, China's global invitation is a gamble. Clearly, Baba Beijing knows the risks and has decided that now is the time and not later. This is logical because either way, there is a very good chance that Washington, London, Paris, Tel Aviv, with their reptile brains, will feel imperially compelled to start a war with China anyway. This decision to act now and not later is verified by Baba Beijing's new gold-backed petro-yuan, petro-renminbi for their currency. Its launch right after the 19th Party Congress is no coincidence. Challenging the global dollar tyranny is truly the silver dagger in Western Empire's heart of darkness. Just ask Iraq and Libya, which were razed to the ground and their leaders murdered after refusing to take U.S. dollars as payment for their resources. It appears Baba Beijing believes that it can keep any war with the U.S. non-nuclear and win it without involving its allies, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. I suspect China has secretly developed technology that can shut down America's military computer and communication systems, not to mention that it has advanced missiles that can sink every ship in Uncle Sam's Sixth Fleet in a matter of days. The next question then becomes, at what point would NATO-Tel Aviv pull the nuclear trigger? Or would they stop fighting, cut a deal, and declare victory along the lines of Korea and Vietnam? Only time will tell, but Baba Beijing has been planning this for years, so it surely has information that the public doesn't. But remember, this conundrum is not China's fault. This whole global predicament is due to Yaranglo-land and its tyrannical world order. It is imposed on all of us, including the West's own citizens. To really understand how all this works and why China's system of governance is so amazingly successful, in spite of a tsunami of China-hating and anti-communist propaganda bloviating out of the West mainstream media, not to mention 70 years of the deep state trying to sabotage and overthrow this country's way of life, the China trilogy is highly recommended reading. In fact, after reading this article, you may start to consider the China trilogy required reading. You may not agree with everything explained, but no one can ever say you don't understand how humanity works and where you are headed, at least from the Chinese's perspective. And after Xi's speech, this is true now more than ever. In conclusion, on October 18, 2017, the world as we know it changed forever and for the better. Much, much better. I've christened it CD Day. Put it on your calendars for Chinese Dream Day. The ball is in your court, dear fans and followers of China Rising Radio Sinoland. It's time to sit up a little straighter, hold your head higher and prouder, feel more hopeful, and realize there is a concrete, proven vision being offered to all the world's peoples for the 21st century. You, your children, and your grandchildren. Now, how are you going to make it happen? To give you a positive shot in the arm, let's close out with two great gospel-inspired civil rights movement classics by the Impressions. And of course, there's two songs that you can listen to. And then, wow! The Impressions were something else, weren't they? I'm roaring for the good fight now. Take that, Empire. All the best from the eye of 21st century's global vortex, the Chinese dream for the new era. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland, signing out from Shenzhen, China. Have a wonderful weekend.